to invite you to listen to John chapter 20, verses 24 through 31. But Thomas, who was called the twin, one of the 12, was not with them when Jesus came. So the other disciples told him, "We have seen the Lord." But he said to them, "Unless I see the mark of the nails in his hands, and put my finger in the mark of the nails, and my hand in his side, I will not believe." A week later, his disciples were again in the house, and Thomas was with them. Although the doors were shut, Jesus came and stood among them and said, "Peace be with you." Then he said to Thomas, "Put your finger here and see my hands. Reach out your hand and put it in my side. Do not doubt, but believe." Thomas answered to him, "My Lord and my God." Jesus said to him, "Have you believed because you have seen me? Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have come to believe." Now Jesus did many other signs in the presence of his disciples, which are not written in this book. But these are written so that you may come to believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Son of God, and that through believing you may have life in his name. The word of God for the people of God.
Thanks be to God. Well, for those of you who insist on sitting on the back row every week, can you tell what I've got here this morning?
Here it is.
That's exactly right. This is a first for it. Well, it's the second because I did it in the 8:45 service. This is the first time ever that I have brought a Harry Potter book or mentioned Harry Potter in a sermon. Ever. And I've been at this for a little while now. First time I've ever. Now, I don't know if you can remember back this far, but when Harry Potter first came out, boy, there were some people who just made a hullabaloo about it. Oh, we're teaching our children wizardry and witchcraft. You know, I guess those people had never read The Lord of the Rings. It's got wizards and stuff too. But no, we decided we'd make a big deal out of Harry Potter. My husband is from Alamogordo, New Mexico. And when I think it was the 5th book of the Harry Potter series came out, in Alamogordo, New Mexico, they had a book burning. Yeah, not cool. That Thanksgiving, Kevin said, "I'm not from here. I don't know these people." The controversy ended when the 7th book came out, though, because J.K. Rowling, the author, started quoting scripture. At that point, everybody shut up. It's really too bad because it means they weren't paying attention when the first book came out. I don't know if you've ever read the Harry Potter books, but they have more detail than the movies do. And some people sort of pass over this first little detail. Now, there are a whole lot of clues before you get to this, but the very end of the book, Harry Potter, as usual, is in the hospital because he's been fighting somebody or other. He's in the hospital, and when he wakes up, there is his mentor, Dumbledore. And he looks around, and it said, Harry was lying in bed with a white linen sheets, and next to him was a table piled high with what looked like half of the candy shop. Dumbledore said, "Tokens from your friends and admirers. What happened down in the dungeons between you and Professor Quirrell is a complete secret, so naturally the whole school knows. I believe your friends, Misters Fred and George Weasley were trying to send you a toilet seat. No doubt they thought you would be amused. The nurse, however, felt it might not be very hygienic and has confiscated it. And Harry said, "How long have I been here?" 3 days. Now, friends, when there is any kind of story and something happens in 3 days, what do Christians think of? Easter. Hello, on the third day he rose from the dead? Is it ringing any bells with anybody? If anybody had been paying attention to the first book, they would have known this is not about demons or wizardry or teaching evil magic to children. This is a retelling of the Christ story. And just in case you missed it on that page, Ms. Rowling gave us another chance. Why couldn't, the bad guy's name is Voldemort, why couldn't Voldemort touch me? Oh, Harry, your mother died to save you. If there is one thing Voldemort cannot understand, it's love. He didn't realize that love, as powerful as your mother's, leaves its own mark. Not a scar, no visible sign. To have been loved so deeply, even though the person who loved us is gone, will give us some protection forever. It's in your very skin. Voldemort, full of hatred, greed, and ambition, could not touch you for this reason. It was agony to touch a person marked by something so good. The Harry Potter series was a retelling of the Christ story. This summer I've been preaching on the superheroes. On the last day of Vacation Bible School, I took 2 of the youth home, and we got into a spirited discussion about whether Harry Potter even qualifies as a superhero. And finally they decided, well, he has magic, so I guess that makes him a superhero. Well, yeah, so does everybody else in his world. They decided that would make him a superhero. But their hesitation came from precisely the reason that makes this a telling of the Christ story. Because this is a kid that nobody liked, whose parents had died, and who was to become known as the chosen one. Now, if J.K. Rowling wasn't slapping all of us in the face with Christianity, I don't know who does. Now, it's very interesting because in the beginning of the first book, it turns out that any witch or wizard who ever met Harry Potter knew instantly that it was Harry Potter. And it was not because they'd ever met him before. It was not because they'd ever seen his face. It was not because they knew his family. Anybody from that world who looked at Harry Potter instantly knew who he was. They could pick him out from any number of same-age boys who might be gathered around him. Because Harry Potter had a scar in the shape of a lightning bolt on his forehead. And so anybody looking at that face looked at the scar and they knew that it was Harry. Now it's interesting because in the story about Easter night, Jesus shows up among his disciples, and evidently they don't recognize his face. Because John is very specific. John says he showed them his hands where the nails had gone through at the cross, and he showed them his side where the spear had been thrown at him. And it was those marks in his hand and in his side that reassured the disciples, this is really Jesus. Now in religious circles, there's a technical name for those signs. They're called stigmata. And stigmata, it was thought for a long time, would be given to anyone who was especially faithful. And so some of the saints, some of the martyrs, some of the mystics back before the scientific era would claim that God had given them marks in their hand, or marks in their side, or marks in their feet that mirrored Jesus. And that was an outward and visible sign of how faithful they were to the message of Jesus. If you ever learn to do sign language, the sign language for Jesus is to touch those prints in his hands. You can look at any number of paintings of bearded men, but if his hands are visible, you can instantly pick out Jesus. That was the identifying mark. That's how you know it's Jesus, because he bears those marks. And he bears those marks even after the resurrection. Most of us, I think, don't have stigmata to show off. And so most of us are left in a different category than Harry Potter or even Jesus. Because when we say we're Christian, most people can't just look at us and see a scar or see stigmata that marks us as different. Now, some of us may wear a butterfly or may wear a cross, and that might give others a clue. But the reality is that when you and I talk about bringing Jesus to the world, it's not like somebody can look at us and instantly say, oh, he's a Christian. Oh, she's a Christian. You and I don't have stigmata to show. And so we have to show in another way that we belong to Jesus. And so we have to show through our generosity that we belong to Jesus. We have to show through our prayer life that we belong to Jesus. We have to show through our compassion that we belong to Jesus. We have to show in a thankful attitude and in a courage that demands justice that we belong to Jesus. Those are our signs. We don't have a nice lightning-shaped scar on our forehead. We don't have the marks of the nails in our hands. But you and I are marked as Christians. People may not be able to look at you and say, oh, there's a mark there. But people ought to be able to look at us and say, I'll bet they are a follower of Jesus Christ. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.